of the most enduring legends in history, the one and only Red Baron.
You know, back in the First World War, just hearing that name was enough to inspire pure dread. He wasn't just some pilot. No, he was this phantom, this symbol of German dominance in the air, and his reputation always preceded him across the front lines.
And that's really the big question we're digging into. Was the legend of the Red Baron built on reckless, impossible stunts? Or was the truth behind his success something far more calculated, and maybe even more fascinating?
To really understand the legend, we've got to start with the man himself, Manfred von Richthofen, and figure out how he became this ghost in the sky. Believe it or not, Richthofen actually started the war totally bored, stuck down in the mud of the trenches. But when he transferred over to the brand new air service, well, he didn't just find a new job, he found his calling. The sky literally became his personal hunting ground. And as his victories started piling up, so did the myths. I mean, Allied pilots would tell these incredible stories of a crimson plane that seemed to defy the laws of physics, a ghost that could just appear out of nowhere. They swore they could hear the distinct growl of his engine before he was even visible. The fear he inspired was absolutely real.
But here's the thing. The reality of his success had nothing to do with supernatural abilities. It was all based on a cold, methodical approach to air combat.
So while a lot of the other flying aces of the time were known for these flashy, daring stunts and getting into risky dogfights, Richthofen was the exact opposite. He wasn't a showman, he was a pure strategist. He traded all that reckless action for absolute surgical precision.
His whole process was like that of a patient hunter. He was a student of his enemy. He would stalk them from above, studying their flight patterns, memorizing how they reacted when they were under pressure. He would only strike when the conditions were absolutely perfect, when the sun and the altitude were in his favor.
And then, of course, there was the plane itself. That iconic blood-red triplane wasn't just for show, it was a psychological weapon. When Allied pilots saw that flash of red in the clouds, they knew the hunter was on the prowl.
But being a living legend, a national hero, well, that came at an immense personal cost.
Because even legends grow tired. And the relentless pressure of combat, the constant fame, it all started to wear Richthofen down.
The man behind the myth was battling serious exhaustion, severe headaches, and just the constant strain of being Germany's #1 hero. The high command was literally begging him to retire, terrified of what the blow to morale would be if he were killed. But he refused. He felt this profound duty to the men in his squadron and just couldn't imagine abandoning them. Which brings us to April 21st, 1918, the day the legend finally met his end.
In a moment that was completely out of character for him, really reckless, Richthofen chased an enemy plane deep into Allied territory, flying dangerously low over the Somme River. And it was there that a single bullet, fired from the ground, found its mark. His famous red triplane didn't crash, it just floated down, spiraling gently toward the ground.
When Allied soldiers reached the wreckage, they found a really poignant scene. Richthofen was still in his cockpit, and his expression was peaceful, almost as if he had finally just closed his eyes and gone to sleep. And in what has to be this remarkable testament to the respect he commanded, the Allies, his sworn enemies, gave him a funeral with full military honors. They knew they hadn't just shot down an enemy plane. They knew they had lost one of the world's greatest aviators.
So what's the final takeaway here? How do we remember the Red Baron today?
Well, the man, Manfred von Richthofen, a tired hero bound by duty, he died that day at 1918. But the legend, the symbol of the Red Baron, that flies on.
And that's his ultimate legacy. He's still the benchmark for aerial combat, a figure whose story just transcends the war he fought in. His legend, it seems, simply never came back down to earth. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Why is it that some stories, some symbols like the Red Baron, become so much larger and so much more powerful than the actual person they were built on?